Don't know when I'll ever be ready, but it's happening. Do you hear me? Do you hear me, room? You're gonna get it. Welcome back, Awakening Beauties. If this is your first time joining my channel, I give you a hearty welcome. Thanks so much for being with me today. My name is Robin, and this channel is sort of the intersection of beauty, fashion, and spirituality. If spirituality turns you off, don't worry. I don't get into a lot of God stuff around here. It's more about higher consciousness, about self-care, about bettering ourselves to reach our full potential, or at least the greatest potential of ourselves that we can be in this life. And if all that sounds good to you, I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel. And if you like the video, give it a like. Really appreciate that. Now, what I want to talk about in this video, I've been doing a lot of decluttering lately. There's been a couple of videos and there's another one to come, and I'm not sure if it's going up before or after this video, but I do a massive shoe declutter. And that was a big one for me because shoes hold a very strong emotional charge for me. Maybe you can relate. Are any of you shoe fiends the way I am? It's very hard for me to get rid of shoes. But what I want to talk about is why we should, or why I should, declutter, and sort of breaking it down a little bit. I know there's a lot of other videos out there about decluttering, about minimalism and those types of things, and there's so much great information. And I'm borrowing some of the stuff from those videos, but applying it to myself and maybe breaking it down in a way that doesn't feel so scary for you if you're thinking about decluttering. And maybe you are thinking about it, and maybe that's how you found this video, and you don't know where to get started, and it seems very overwhelming. And I get you. I completely get you. It was very daunting for me to tackle my closet. It was very daunting for me to tackle my shoes, especially. And there's other areas of my house that are still on the project list of things that need to get decluttered. This room that I'm sitting in right now, it's the biggest one, actually. And I'm not even gonna think about tackling that right now because emotionally, I'm not ready for it. Just not ready. Don't know when I'll ever be ready, but it's happening. Do you hear me? Do you hear me, room? You're gonna get it. You're gonna get it. I might need to bring in a professional to help me with this one. So I just want to have a nice relaxed conversation because we don't need to get stressed out about the thoughts of decluttering. I want to talk about, before you ever even start, let's kind of review of why we might need to declutter, and maybe some tips and tricks that will help you, maybe some things that will prompt you to maybe want to write about. If you have a journal, you may want to sit down and kind of write about some of the things that I'm going to talk about in this video. So the first thing that we need to recognize is that the clutter, it's not about the stuff. And it might seem like it's about the stuff, but it really isn't. It's sort of a symbol, an outer representation of ways how our life has gotten out of balance. And it might feel like, no, it ain't out of balance, it's out of control. We can always get that back. We can get that control back over the stuff. But what were the things in our life that led to that clutter? Maybe they were simply as simple as, I don't have time to deal with that right now, so I'm just gonna throw this in a pile over here. Getting to it quite never happens. Or if we do, we're only tackling the surface layer and not the rest of it. It might be as simple as that, but actually that's not simple, because that procrastination habit, which number one procrastinator right here, I profess I am a bit of a procrastinator. It's not, what it really is not wanting to deal with a problem, or it's not wanting to deal with an emotional reaction. That's really what it is. Not wanting to deal with an emotional reaction to that problem. My number one biggest challenge of clutter, I find, is basically like financial clutter. That sitting down to do the bookkeeping for our home and our business is a bit overwhelming. I make it overwhelming in my mind. Things just pile up. You get so many credit card offers and stuff, and I need to shred those. And I'm like, okay, let me just put this here for now. Let me just put this in this pile for now. I'll take care of that later. But if I stay on top of it, I know it's going to be so much less intimidating. That's something that I'm going to do. But when I said that clutter is not just about stuff. So that's one example of an emotional response that I have to being overwhelmed. Maybe not wanting to see what a bill is, because I know I've put a lot on a credit card. I just don't want to deal with it in that moment. It's about avoiding a negative emotion. So I'm working on reframing my attitude about that, and probably at some point we can talk about that, about ways that I'm working to reframe my thought process when it comes to finances, because I'm doing a no-buy year, because I'm trying to get control over spending, over mindless spending, over not being mindful about my spending, trying to declutter my life and declutter my finances. And it's gonna take a while. It's gonna take a while to unravel things that have accrued over the years. So when it comes to like physical stuff, let's just talk about my closet. My closet, I probably got rid of, and I say got rid of because I didn't actually get rid of everything, and we'll go into the why in momentarily, but I cleared out my closet, and some things I donated, some things just needed to be thrown away, and some things got stored. They're not seasonal, that I'll wear later in the year, and some things I wasn't ready to part with, but right now they don't feel like me. So I pack them away, and I am going to look at them in a few months and decide if I really need to keep these things or if I can just let them go. And you may be thinking, you should just let it go. Why are you holding on to that stuff? Well, there is a reason, and I will get into that momentarily, but let's continue to unpack this. There's more reasons why clutter tends to build up is feelings of lack. Sometimes we buy in bulk, and I certainly do that at times. I have a Costco membership. There are things that we will use up, so we do buy them in bulk. But sometimes it's like just in case. We buy a bunch of stuff just in case. There's a deal, 2 for the price of 1. Save this much if you buy more. And if it's not something that you're gonna use up within a couple of months, like toilet paper or paper towels, then it just creates more clutter around your house. Do you have the space for that? All of that stuff is not just taking up physical space, it's taking up emotional space. I feel like everything that comes into our house has an energy. It can prevent energy from flowing through your house. It can just make you feel stuck. It can feel oppressive and burdensome to have a bunch of stuff. For us, the garage is like the never-ending project because everything gets delegated out into the garage that doesn't stay in the house. And we're constantly trying to be on top of that. And we have not so far been successful at really decluttering our garage. And that's a project too. So I am not preaching from experience of being successful at decluttering. I am on the path of decluttering, even though I've done so much decluttering through the years. But here's the thing, I've brought in new stuff. We've brought in new stuff that has taken up space after we've decluttered. That's a problem. So I want to think about everything that's coming into my house. Every time I place a purchase, what space is this going to take up in my house? Is this going to feel oppressive? Is this going to be helpful? Like, we just bought an ice maker, a countertop ice maker. And our countertop was already cluttered with stuff. So as a result, I decluttered the countertop. We removed some things from the countertop. We said we're not gonna do this anymore. We're not gonna keep this stuff on the countertop. We're gonna keep it much more minimal. And although we did bring in the countertop ice maker, because we removed some things from our countertop that I had a basket on the countertop that we used to throw our recycling stuff in, and then we would just empty that like every day or two, take it out to the garage and put it in the recycle bins. But now I'm like, nope, if it needs to be recycled, I'm taking it directly out to the recycle bin in the garage. So that's just something I'm doing. I'm getting more steps that way too. Win-win. So a part of decluttering that has to be said is that if you want to declutter, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because it is uncomfortable. At times, it is very uncomfortable to declutter. This has been sort of my motto in life, especially since I started doing improv comedy 7.5 years ago, that it can be very uncomfortable being on stage when there's silence, when you're not sure what to say, when you're not sure what's gonna happen next. And when you're in the moment, go together. Five seconds can feel like 5 minutes. And so something that I've incorporated into my improv is just saying, okay, I'm going to always be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's, after I've decided that, I've translated that into my life. Embracing discomfort, embracing silence, embracing the silence of mental declutter. So getting comfortable being uncomfortable, and it can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable to have to think about, why did I accumulate all of these things in my life? Because unless you get down to that reason, you're going to continue the cycle of cluttering your home. I've seen this with people that I know. I've helped people to declutter areas of their house. And within a very short amount of time, those areas were cluttered back up, because they have either some kind of shopping addiction, but it's all the same thing. What are you trying to escape from thinking about? What are you trying to cover up? What are you trying not to think about? What problem are you avoiding? And really, that's a big part of why we bring a lot of clutter into our lives. Let's talk about some questions that you can ask yourself when you're starting the process. And I definitely don't recommend doing, unless you're up for the challenge and you you think you'll be okay, you might need to just start with 10 minutes a day and not do a massive taking everything out of your closet. But if you've got the time and you've got the intestinal fortitude, then go for it. I just want to talk about like the shoes and the clothes that I decluttered. The question I kept asking myself is, does this represent who I am now? When I wear this, does this feel like who I am at this point in my life? There was a time in my life where I had so many dresses, so many skirts, so many suits, very beautiful clothes, but it all was related to a time in my life when I was a part of a religion that I had to dress up for and to go to church 3 times a week. And when I left that religion and left my community, all of that stuff, all of the high heels, all of the dresses, and I mean, I had massive amounts of clothes. My closet was pretty much falling apart because it couldn't hold the weight of all those clothes. I had to ask myself at a certain point, like, does this represent who I am now? And for me, clothes have memories. I have memories and energy attached to clothing items. And if I had a bad experience wearing an article of clothing, I get rid of it. I know that sounds crazy, but I will always remember that negative thing in my life related to what I was wearing. That's how I am. I don't know if you guys are like that, but I have definitely gotten rid of clothing because it reminded me of a negative experience in my life. So does this align with who I am now? Does this represent who I am now? And then the second question is, does this align with the best version of myself that I want to be? And that can be a harder thing to figure out, because you might think, this is, oh, I paid so much money for this. This is such a beautiful dress. But it might be just from a time in your life when you were a different person. I have been many different versions of myself. My style has changed and waned and gone this way and that way, and not necessarily with the trends, just with who I am at that moment. And if it doesn't align with who I am or who I want to be, then it can go. And I'll say another helpful tip, does it spark joy? Yes, Marie Kondo, does it spark joy? And maybe that's an easier question to ask. Does this spark joy? And if it doesn't, the reason might be is just because it doesn't align with who you are or it doesn't represent who you want to be. So another tip is to check in with your gut. If you're at peace with getting rid of this thing. Now, those things that I did not get rid of, I said I would circle back to this. Those things that I did not get rid of, but I said aren't me right now. I did not feel comfortable getting rid of them yet. I wanted them out of my closet for a few months. And when I open up that suitcase again and check out those articles of clothing, if they still don't spark joy and give me the feelings of, yes, this is me, or yes, this represents who I want to be, then they're gonna get donated. And I have no problem with that. I'm pretty good at getting rid of things. I do declutters every 4 to 6 months. I do regular declutters, but I just wasn't ready. My gut told me, don't get rid of these things just yet. And so I didn't. Other things, I thought, yes, I'm good. I'm fine with getting rid of this. It can go. So that is another key. You've got to check in with yourself. And don't use that as an excuse to hold on to things that no longer serve you. This is not an excuse to keep things, but we also have to honor if we're ready to get rid of things. Sometimes we might not be ready, and it's no help to you going forward if you get rid of things just willy-nilly that you're not ready to get rid of. And it might feel too overwhelming. But if you make a commitment to say, I'm going to take these things and put them in a storage bin for 3 months, and in 3 months, I have to make a decision. Am I going to hang this back up in my closet, or am I going to let this go? And stick with that. It's taking responsibility over your life and ownership over your life. And it's very empowering too to do. So that's why I didn't get rid of some things, and they may or may not get permanently decluttered. We'll have to wait and see. Another tip I want to give you is to think about, when was the last time you used this item? Have you used it in the last 6 months? Are you planning to use it in the next 6 months? Well, we have Christmas decorations and we have them in bins in our storage unit. And I'm going to be using those in a few months. So that's not stuff that I'm going to get rid of, even though I pack away and put them in a storage unit. We have a lot of stuff in there, but it's stuff that we will eventually use. And if we don't, then it's going to go, right? Just like the clothes that I have in that suitcase that are sitting in my storage unit. So some of these tips, like I said, they come from other sources like The Minimalist. You know, have you used it in the past 6 months? Do you plan to use it in the next 6 months? And this one I thought was a really good one. If someone offered you money for it, would you part with it? And there's a lot of things that I thought about in my house. So I said, yeah, if somebody offered me money, I probably would part with it. So that's a pretty good indication that that thing can go. Another really good tip that I heard was, if something disappeared or died or was destroyed or stopped working, would it be something that you are actively seeking to replace? So that's a really good indication of something that you should not declutter. So I hope that you will see that decluttering is a positive thing, and what it can lead to is, once you eliminate a lot of the physical stuff around you, it can open up some mental clarity into your life and who you want to be and what other things are cluttering your life. There's social media clutter. There's so much information clutter coming in, from emails to social media. There's a lot of things cluttering our lives right now. One of the greatest benefits I got from going to Peru 2 years in a row, I went and spent 2 weeks in the jungle in Peru, is that I had no technology, and my mind was so clear, and I was able to really be and think and just release a lot of tension. And that's something that is more difficult to get in this world that we live in, with all of our technology and all of this stuff coming at us all the time. That's another thing that I'm working on, is decluttering my mental space. It's not just about the physical stuff. And sometimes you gotta declutter friends too. You've got friends that you don't feel great about after you spent time with them. You don't maybe feel great about the time wasted spent with them, or how you felt about yourself after spending time with them. Maybe you need to declutter some friendships too. Just saying. That's another area of our lives that often gets neglected. Sometimes we gotta just surround ourselves with better people. In the end, that's a declutter that sometimes has to happen as well. So I hope some of these tips and tricks and thoughts that I've had will be beneficial to you. If you're decluttering, what are you decluttering, or what do you need to declutter? Leave me a comment below. My takeaway from this is going back to what I learned in improv all those years ago, is being comfortable being uncomfortable. And being vulnerable here with all of you is a bit uncomfortable, but I'm embracing it, and I know that we're all in this together and that I'm not alone in the way that I'm feeling. So leave me a message below. I really appreciate the support. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'm hoping that you're gonna have a great mentally uncluttered week. And until next time, remember, you're doing great.